Dad packed his hunter kit, wearing camouflage, wearing yellow sunglasses. I don't have his equipment, so I chose a camouflage t-shirt, hiking boots, and tan khaki pants. I put my phone in my pocket. I followed my dad out the door. We got into his pickup truck, heading towards the destination. I don't know where the tree hunting ground is, but Dad said not far. The sun has just risen. I don't know why we have to leave so early. Dad never explained. I never asked. We only need to remember one thing today. Dad smiled and said tobacco. What's the matter? When the opportunity comes, we must not hesitate. I said no problem. Dad took Pat hunting every year. All I hear is how accurate Pat's marksmanship is. I prefer video games and horror movies. Instead of sitting on a mud hut, kill the creatures in the forest. Usually, my mom and I would prepare a post-hunt feast with tenderloin and baked potatoes. This is at least a win for me from my dad. Return some impression points. We hit the freeway. Dad chose the south exit to the ruffian castle. I find that strange. I don't know much about hunting, but I do. The road to Allegheny. Definitely closer than the stadium. A lot more. Are we going to buy something? I asked my dad to pick up a cup. Spat in it. No. We finally came to Pine Hill, northeast of the city center. After a few more minutes, we came to a parking lot for a hiking trail. I can see through the woods. See a community ahead. The deer are coming down their backyard. It's just our car in the parking lot. Dad didn't say anything. He went to the window and grabbed his rifle. I stayed in the car and waited for instructions. It's time to hunt. Dad knocked on my window. I opened the door and walk him up the path. Dad said, I know. You must love how quiet your house has become. I walked behind him, carefully avoid the branch he stepped on. I like it. Is it quiet in the house? You are a child who likes to stay at home. He said when everyone was there. Very noisy at home. I love you, Mom, but he thinks as much as I do. Dad smiled and blew his cigarette on the ground. We are getting closer to the community ahead. I don't like silence, and I said, okay. Dad nodded, stuffed a bullet into the rifle. I'm surprised this community is so close to the hunting grounds. Imagine a hunting scene. I think of men in tree houses in the mountains. There was no one around. Aren't people here scared by the sound of gunshots? I like the quiet I choose. Dad said, but we didn't make a choice. Really? I didn't say anything. I bit the inside of my cheek. After a few bites, I tasted blood. Because of another person's decision, I had to live in a quiet house. Dad went on. Do you know how many times I've been drunk at a bar? Want to drive straight home? I'm not a rich man. I can't afford it every time. $20 taxi fare. But I always call a car. I know there are mothers and children on the road. I don't want their blood on me. Dad stopped in his tracks. Is it 411? He asked, pointing to a house. I watched carefully. I could see 411 written on the side of the oil drum in the distance. Yes. This house. It's like a scene out of a James Bond movie. Huge windows, rear wraparound first floor terrace, Greek statue. There is also a pool in the backyard and water flow from the waterfall temple. Although it is still early, there is a child and a mother by the water. This boy is probably a preschooler. He had a remote. There is a boat circling in the water. Dad got down on one knee. He took the scope out of his bag and put it on the rifle. Have you learned about venereal diseases? Dad is speaking in a very low voice now. He looked through the scope, adjusted it. It took 3 changes to adjust it. His hands were shaking. A disease with a crazy name. Spread from person to person. You had a great night with a girl. Woke up with lips the size of a fist. You know that, right? And I nodded my head. I looked back at the woman and the child. He knelt beside the child, rubbing his shoulder. He had a big smile on his face. He reminds me of my mother. And you know what? He's lying in the mud now. The rifle was aimed at the building with the waterfall. A swimming pool house. Know what? How do diseases spread from person to person? He became depressed. Of course, I do. What's up? Pain is like an STD. Infect each other. If there is a lot of pain in your life, you are responsible for this. But pass the pain on to someone else. By no means innocent. I was sweating on my forehead. I don't like the way my father talks. When he heard about his mother and Pat. That's what they say. Where is the hunting ground? Dad loaded the gun. The owner of that house gave us a lot of pain. I looked through the books. The pieces of the mystery are gradually pieced together. No, Dad. We should go home. And you know what? He left the hospital in 2 hours. What? Your mother and Pat's body were sitting in the car. And he was rushing home. He only has a few abrasions. Dad put his eyes on the scope. We need to redistribute the pain. I have never used force against my father. I'm not very close to him. But there is a tacit understanding between us. Get out of my way. I wouldn't love you either. But there's nothing to understand here. Dad took a deep breath. As he exhaled, I pounced and pressed the barrel of the gun into the soil. Hello, he shouted and pushed me away. Let's go home. We don't have a home anymore. He said. Dad turned around and kicked me. Kicked me hard in the stomach. Kicked me to the ground. Please don't do this. I try to get closer again, but it hurts so much. I can feel my ribs when I breathe. Sharp edges pierced something. I was like a wounded animal. I took a few breaths. Dad didn't look at me. His attention all focused on that woman and child. Baby, I will avenge you, he whispered. His gunshot echoed in the forest. I close my eyes and bury my face in the ground. I want to explode after the forest coat weakens. I heard the sound of water splashing. I slowly lifted my head from the grass. The remote control boat is still circling. The woman is staring at the pool, eyes open as big as dinner plates. He stood still for a moment. when he finally screamed. The eyes haven't changed. The only thing that moved was his mouth. His voice was raw and hollow. The remote-controlled boat came to a slow stop. The water under the boat turns purple. The ring is brown, then red. "Dad, take your face off the scope." And she started crying. With him at Mom and Pat's funeral, crying looks different. That's the cry of a tough guy. But this time is different. He was crying, like a child who didn't get her favorite Christmas toy. Then Dad stood up like he was hypnotized. "Wipe the dirt off your clothes," heading towards the car. I watched him teeter down the path. I want to run up and catch him, knock him down, put a circle around his stupid eyes. But I can't. I try to move, but my body doesn't respond. The woman's cries echoed in my ears, as if I were the god he was begging for. I don't know if Dad's pain has gone away, but my pain, it's growing. If you like this story, please click like. If you don't like this story, please click subscribe to the channel to watch the next videos. Thank you.